everybody, and welcome. I want to wish you a good evening and welcome to our South Haven Speaker Series. Tonight, we explore a quiet but profound question. As our world grows brighter, what do we lose when our night sky fades? Our speaker tonight, Dr. Ann Blackwell, will help us see how light, something we often take for granted, shapes not only our environment, but our health, our ecosystems, and our connections with the stars. Here in our lakeshore community of South Haven, we are uniquely positioned to appreciate the beauty of the dark sky. Tonight's discussion challenges us to think about how our everyday lighting choices influence not just visibility, but the natural rhythms of life around us. I'm Dave Flack. I'm a director here at the South Haven Speaker Series. And on behalf of our board of directors, we welcome you to the second of 4 programs for our 2026 season. Now, without further ado, I'm excited to turn this program over to our president, Elaine Stevens, who will introduce tonight's speaker. Thank you.
We are so excited to have Dr. Ann Blackwell with us this evening. I want to tell you a little bit about her, and I promised her that these stories shouldn't embarrass her, but I hope that you find them interesting. As a child, Annie, as she likes to be called, was always curious about the natural world, and she spent many hours exploring the great outdoors. Now, one of her favorite activities was gazing at the stars and planets in the night sky for hours. So I envision her in the front or backyard at home on the grass, looking up at the planets and just always wondering about them and wanting to learn more. Now, according to Annie, she would steal, that's her word, not mine, she would steal her father's birding scope and binoculars to try to be able to see them better. And then eventually her family decided that she could have her own telescope. I'm sure there's an interesting family story connected with that. When she was a little bit older, Annie worried her parents when she would spend hours at night on the golf course behind their house. She was a teenager then. However, she did have her telescope, and she assured me that she was there stargazing. And no, none of the neighbors ever called the police, so I think it was quite all right. All of these early experiences eventually led her to the College of William and Mary, where she earned a Bachelor of Science in Physics with a minor in mathematics, and then to a PhD program at the University of Michigan in the Department of Astronomy and Astrophysics. This March, Annie successfully defended her dissertation and earned her PhD. And as if that wasn't enough, concurrently, she earned a graduate degree in medical physics. I think her parents must be very proud of her, and I know everyone in this room is incredibly impressed by that. In addition, Annie is passionate about teaching, and she was the first graduate student in her department at U of M to receive an Outstanding Teaching Award. Now, I have to tell you, that's unusual, and that's not easy to get, especially for a graduate student. Annie is committed to making science accessible to others and has given numerous public talks, including participating on a panel of experts for the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. She's deeply involved with Michigan Dark Skies, where her goal is to inspire communities to take simple steps to reduce light pollution and to reconnect with the glories of the night skies. I know all of you are eager to learn more from her. And now please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Ann Blackwell.
So thank you all so much for being here and for having me. Hopefully tonight will just be very broad, educational on the simple steps that you can do within the community to better light pollution around your area and what steps could be taken next, either together or just individually. So, starting off with just a little introduction of myself, I am, like Elaine said, a very newly minted doctor. I defended 2 months ago, so Dr. Blackwell, but I just go by Annie. Dr. Blackwell still sounds very weird. I've got my PhD in astronomy and astrophysics. My thesis work was in X-ray astrophysics, where I was looking at galaxy groups and clusters, really trying to figure out when and where all of the elements in the universe were created. So if you've got any questions about that, I'm happy to talk about it. I decided to take a little switch, and I am leaving the field of astronomy, unfortunately, because job prospects are hard, and I would love to make a living and have a solid career. So I also got a little degree in medical physics, and am very happy that I matched at my number one at the University of Michigan, so I get to stay in my parents' house. It's cheap rent. Outside of the office, I love to bicycle ride. I play roller derby. I do have a bunch of bruises from that. I knit, and I just spend a lot of time outside. I became involved in Michigan Dark Skies in 2020, I believe. It was COVID. Honestly, I was bored. I wanted to do something other than my classes. I got an email asking if there was anybody who wanted to do some outreach, and I said I was more than happy to participate. I'm just trying to get involved and see how I can help the community. So I signed up, and I designed an educational lighting activity for kids, which is they just build these really cute little lamps. And it's been adopted in Michigans all over Michigan. It's been adopted in libraries all over Michigan. So that can also be found on our website. In 2022, I became one of the graduate student co-presidents, and really that means adding people to the email list and being roped in to give public talks for the last several years. So we can't do an astronomy talk without pretty pictures of the night sky. Also, sorry if I'm looking down, I've got my notes on my laptop. So this is an image from Headlands International Dark Sky Park, which is here in Michigan, and it is actually, it's up here. It's right next to the Mackinac Bridge, and it is a beautiful, wonderful place to go stargazing. You can see thousands of stars there, and even the dust lanes from the Milky Way. Unfortunately, this is not what we can see on a usual night around town. What we see in a city like Ann Arbor size, which is a little larger than South Haven, is something more like this. We still get to see some stars, but we see hundreds instead of thousands, and most of them are washed out because of the light pollution, which is errant light coming up into the night sky where it is not actually useful to anybody. So light pollution is defined as the inappropriate or excessive use. Oh my goodness, I've got to remember to use this. So this, thank you, please yell at me if I forget to do this again. So this is what the night sky would look like from a city about the size of Ann Arbor. This is also probably a little generous still. We see hundreds of stars, not thousands of stars. You can still see a bunch of the city glow from the lights below, that kind of orangish, and it just looks really washed out. It's not great. And we call this light pollution. The inappropriate or excessive use of artificial light, and I'll call this term later, the artificial light at night, which we call Alan. If anybody here is named Alan, I'm sorry, it's not a personal dig, but we don't like Alan. This is light that often serves no real function or task. It's harmful to humans and animals, it disrupts our circadian rhythm, and it's incredibly wasteful. We use so much more energy to light up the night sky when it's already lit up by the stars, and we're spending a lot of money on that energy. So it would be a win-win if we could narrow this down. So a little diagram of light pollution. What we really want to do is to light up our streets. I'm going to say a lot, turn off your lights. That's great. But that's not the best way to solve this issue of light pollution, because that's a really extreme solution to take. So we want this useful light that is shining down on the streets. However, a lot of the lighting that we use is not useful and actually projects a lot of upward light instead. And this is usually a result of the lights that are used not being properly shielded. That light will continue to go up into space where it is absolutely not needed, and the only people who can see this lights are the astronauts. This is an image by Christina Koch, one of the 4 members of the Artemis crew that just went around the moon. This was before she was on Artemis, but you can see just how much light is shining on these urban areas. That's not actually going to be useful to any of us because we're not up in space. And I guarantee you the astronauts do not need this light to find their way home. Houston is doing a wonderful job. They're not looking down like, oh, where's Detroit? I really need, that's when we got to start our descent, guys. It's not necessary. So even though it's really pretty, they have cool photos like this, we don't need it. It's wasted light and it's wasted energy. What actually causes the sky glow, though, is that while this light is going up into space, there's a whole bunch of air and molecules. We're very grateful for it. We breathe. But it's really good at scattering this light. So all of it gets scattered around and directed back down to Earth, back down to our own eyes. And we call this sky glow, or the light pollution. So some escapes up into space, some comes back down as light pollution. This is what makes the sky look lit up and washed out. We end up with two competing sources of light, the light that we don't need, which is the sky glow or light pollution, and that from the stars. And unfortunately, this sky glow is usually a lot stronger than the light from the stars. We have some very, very faint stars out there. So the sky glow wins and we lose our night sky. And we end up going from the beautiful night skies like we see at our protected dark skies parks to more like the city views when we're only seeing hundreds of stars and the brightest ones at best. So there are several types of light pollution to talk about and different ways to combat all of those. And the one that we've been talking about primarily so far is sky glow, where the sky is lit up. The second one is known as light trespassing. This is light that's going where it doesn't belong. And I'm sure many of you have fallen very victim to a neighbor or the city having a street light in a very good to them, very bad for you positioning, where it's going right up into your bedroom and just happens to hit that gap in between the blinds and the wall and right into your eyes. It's awful. Unfortunately, I have a really great example of this. I actually took this image last night from my own bedroom. This is my neighbor's garage light. They are really trying to light up the garage area, their back door. Great. I love this for them. I support that. What I don't support is this going up into my second-story bedroom. And the sad part about this is the really good light. They have another much more aggressive light that is on their front porch, but I think they recently got some new tenants, and they keep forgetting to turn that on, thankfully, because it really lights up my window. But this is a problem, and this is very frustrating. The third type is glare, light shining into your eyes. Again, something we can all relate to, driving at night. There is a car a little bigger than yours driving behind you with the very bright LED lights. They are coming straight through your back window, bouncing off the mirrors into your eyes. It makes it super difficult to see. It adds a lot of confusion, adds a lot of glare. You can't see the road as well. It's a really dangerous situation. And so overall, this just reduces visibility, and it's not good for anybody. And light pollution in all of these forms has been increasing steadily over the past several decades. So this is a study from 2001, and I'll be showing you how it's predicted, well, first how it measured, then how it predicted the increase in light pollution from 1950 up until 2025. So the way to read this image is the dark areas and the green areas are the lowest light pollution, and then the little areas where you see the red, those have the most light pollution. Compare that as we go up into the middle 70s, 1997, and 2025, it's getting really bad really fast. And when I started giving this talk a couple of years ago, I would say, unfortunately, we are on track to meet this prediction for 2025. All right, so here's are the predictions. We've got late 1950s, middle 1970s, 1997, and 2025, and you can see just how quickly the light pollution grew around some of our major metropolitan areas. So this was originally a prediction because the study was done in 2001, and this is a 2025 light pollution map that I took from that link. It is public access. You can go and look at it yourself. The scales are a little different here, but it is almost exactly a one-to-one switch of what was predicted and what we are actually seeing and measuring. And this is really not good. And we might even be exceeding it a little bit because of how different the scales are. But even in the original map over here for the late 1950s, we just have some bright red areas. And we had to redefine the scale for 2025 and make new colors in order to show how much more light pollution there is in 2025. Currently, about 13% of residential energy use in the US is for this outdoor lighting, and it is not being used very effectively at all. This could mean that about half of all of the lighting and half of the money that you're spending on outdoor lighting is being used to go up into space instead of down where you actually need it. And we can address this problem immediately and relatively easily and relatively cheaply, excuse me, if not saving money, because we're trying to reduce the amount of energy or redirect the light. Energy costs money. Reducing energy reduces money. So next, we want to talk about the issues when it comes to wildlife. There is a huge problem, especially when it comes to birds. Birds are one of the species most aggressively hurt or affected by light pollution. They migrate at night, and the number one cause for bird death is flying into buildings. Birds get very confused when they see all of these artificial lights. They are expecting to just see the moon and the stars. They get confused by the light. Some of them use the North Star, some of them use the stars moving, some of them use the moon, but instead they get all of these windows. So the birds will fly directly into the windows and pass away, or they will fly around these buildings expecting the light to change at some point. It doesn't, and they pass away from exhaustion. And it's believed that up to 1 billion birds are killed annually by these collisions with buildings. And this was a collection in this image done by a group in Ontario in 2016 that were looking at a couple of buildings. It might have been multiple in Ontario. And they were collecting just birds that were killed by running into the windows. And this is some of that group. And it was 2,100 birds here. So this image actually extends way below what I was actually able to put on the slides. But it is very sad. One of the big examples that I want to talk about is actually these skylights. So this is an example from the annual light display for 9/11. And so both of these skylights represent each of the twin towers that were very unfortunately taken down. A quick Google search tells us that these skylights are so bright that they shoot up about 4 miles into the sky and can be seen approximately 60 miles away on a clear night. That's absurd. That is very, very bright. So now if we change our perspective and go below the lights, this is what it looks like. This was an image taken in 2015. So you can see those lights going up, and all of those bright spots within those lights are birds. So the birds thought that these lights were their guidance. Unfortunately, this memorial happens during the time of bird migration, and so there were a lot of birds trying to fly through New York at this time. There was a study done in 2015 too about the bird density during this time of having the lights on and the lights off. So in this top image, you see the bird density during the tribute in light, but the lights are off. There's approximately 500 birds within half a kilometer of these lights. Once those lights are turned off, that number goes up by 2 orders of magnitude to almost 16,000 birds within half a kilometer. And most of them are flying in circles within these columns of light, thinking that they are finding their own way. I don't know how many birds passed away during this. I don't think that was part of their study. But they have resorted to occasionally turning these lights off to allow the birds to disperse, and then they'll turn them back on again. That is a step in the right direction. Unfortunately, these lights are visible from 60 miles away, and so I don't know how long they're turning off the lights for, but I don't think it's long enough to let the birds get over 60 miles away to not be confused again, see the lights come back on, and fly right back. So, something to keep in mind. But Michigan has been doing a really good job of trying to find ways to solve this. And one of those ways is by starting the Safe Passage program. So, in southern Michigan in particular, we are in the middle of 2 major migratory bird paths known as the Atlantic and the Mississippi Flyway. During this time period, March to May, more than 250 species of birds are migrating through Michigan at night. So having the lights on in residential areas and in skyrises are going to be incredibly confusing to these birds. So the Safe Passage programs advocates for everybody, especially people in high rises over the 5th floor, turning off their lights between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. which I personally find incredibly reasonable. I don't want to be up in between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. I would love to have my lights off and be in bed. So regardless if you're living in a house or in a high-rise, you can help by simply just turning off your lights and not using excessive lighting when you're home, turning off lights going in between rooms, or even just using a motion-activated light for areas that you really would like lit up. Or, stay tuned, I'll have some recommendations on other really good lighting options. In addition to birds, insects have been really affected by artificial light at night, or ALAN. And scientists about 6 years ago started coining this term, the insect apocalypse, because of just how many insects have been dying because of this artificial light at night. So this was a study done in 2020, and I want to highlight their abstract and one sentence in particular, which reads, "Habitat loss, pesticide use, invasive species, and climate change have all likely played a role, but we posit here that artificial light at night is another important but overlooked bringer of the insect apocalypse." So there are over 950 recognized species of bugs in Michigan. Moths are going to be fatally attracted to the light. Some bugs try to run away from the lights as much as possible. When these really bright lights are shining down on dark pavement especially, it creates a mirage and it looks like water. And so water bugs will jump into the road thinking that it's a pond or water, usually, unfortunately, into the path of an oncoming car. Fireflies are completely drowned out by all of this artificial light at night, and they can no longer find each other because they can't see each other. It messes with the bug's circadian rhythm, and ultimately this just starts to go through the whole food chain. Bugs, bats, birds, go down the list. We're going to eventually get to humans. So this is a huge problem. And in the same way it's affecting the health of insects and animals, it is also affecting the human health. Our body has these really great cues that tell us when it's time to go to bed and when it is time to get up. And a lot of that has to do with the sun rising and the sun setting. The light, especially blue light, is going to decrease the amount of melatonin that is being created in your body. So our sky is blue, and it's blue because of the way our molecules work. Our sun looks red-orange to us, but it actually emits light in all colors of the rainbow. And as that light is coming through the atmosphere, our atmosphere will preferentially scatter the blue light. So that blue light just gets bounced around all over our sky, and that's why our sky looks blue. And so that gives our body the cues, we should be awake and up and moving right now. And that's also why our sun looks pretty red, especially when it gets low on the horizon, if you note it getting really red-orange, and same with our moon. It's just an effect of the atmosphere. But this blue light is then really going to affect us. So one of the least things that you can do is turn on a red light filter on your phone. It will help the doom scrolling before bed a little bit. I am absolutely guilty of doing that. But really putting away your phone, just trying to be mindful of it, because sleep does really affect a lot. This was a study or a quote taken from the American Medical Association. Sleep quality, nighttime awakenings, excessive sleepiness, impaired daytime functioning, and obesity are all affected by your quality of sleep. This is also an area where light trespassing can be really important, because sometimes you can do everything in your power to minimize the amount of light you are getting before bed, and your pesky neighbor will not turn off that dang garage light. All right, some very big topic that I absolutely do not want to overlook. Most of the time when we're talking to people about light pollution, the easiest thing to say is please just turn off your lights. But that can lead to a lot of people feeling very unsafe. And that is an incredibly reasonable feeling to have. I am small, I am a woman, I don't want to be walking down a lot of streets at night, especially really dark ones. But there are a lot of huge safety misconceptions when it comes to light. The first one is more light does not necessarily mean more safe. And that's because light that is too bright will reduce your night vision. It'll be difficult going in between different roads, different lightings, or in and out of a businesses or your car or down an alley. This light will also produce a glare that reduces visibility, again making it hard to see. And this harsh lighting will produce very, very dark shadows, which is unfortunately where the boogeyman or an aggressive little raccoon could actually be hiding. So it's not overlighting, it's not no lighting, it's lighting with purpose and intention. And there has been a ton of research done on the link between lighting and safety, and there's really been no clear consensus found between lighting and crime. And this is just one list, it is absolutely not comprehensive, of some of the studies that have been done to try to find this link between them. Some show a positive correlation. More lighting means less crime. Some find a different correlation. More lighting means more or less crime. I forget which one I said first. Some find no correlation at all. So from this, we can say that we have no idea what's going on with lighting and crime. We just try to do our best in an area that makes most people feel the most safe. So I want to take a second to focus on one of the most famous studies done on lighting and crime, and this is the Chicago Alley Study of 2000. What they did was they found some of the most crime-ridden alleys in Chicago, and they documented how much crime occurred before the start of this study over a course of some period of time, and then they installed more lighting within these alleys, and then they measured how much crime happened after the lighting was installed. The red boxes are the crime during the day. If it's going down, it means there was less crime. The blue boxes show the nighttime. They are above the 0% line, which means there was actually an increase in crime. Specifically, property index offenses went from 13 over the measured period of time to 23. The overall total went from 205 crimes to 287. And then for whatever reason, the crimes decreased during the day. My theory is people were too tired from the crimes they committed at night to go out and do them again during the day. But the point in this is that increased lighting maybe just gives more opportunity. We don't know. We probably aren't going to go out and ask people why they're committing these crimes in the light. All right, this is another really great example on how lighting can affect a situation. So this space is illuminated by that one really, really tall light just kind of off to the right side of the image, and it is incredibly bright and incredibly harsh. You can see it really illuminating the trees. You can see one person there in the middle that has a very harsh glare on them. You can see the street. You can see the areas around it. A lot of people, including myself, walking into the situation, not knowing much, would think, great, there's a light. I'm feeling fantastic. However, they asked this person to move. Where is he? So this person that was right there is still in this image. He did not go inside the building. He is outside. He is not hiding behind anything. I'm going to give you all a second to try to find him. All right, I think I've heard a couple people might have found him, which is great. If you haven't, that's great. I didn't know it until I was shown this presentation, but he's actually standing directly underneath the light. The place that you think would be the safest in this entire image is definitely not. And it's because this light is so bright and it is so high, it's not actually being used effectively at all. It's creating these very dark shadows. If you were walking up to the scene, you'd probably be shielding your eyes or trying to look away from that super bright light and that bright glare and miss this person altogether. So, lighting isn't always good lighting. Now, we've spent a lot of time talking about light pollutions and its problems. The next great question to try to answer is, what can we actually do about it? What can we do to stop light pollution and artificial light at night while still maintaining our safety and our sanity, honestly? The easy answer is still just turn your lights off, unfortunately, if you have that comfortability. There was a major power outage in Toronto in 2003, and this is how that night sky changed. This is the same house, the same background, just before the lights went out and after the power outage. You can see that before, the sky is an orange-red because of this, because of all the sky glow. And after all the lights went out, there's no more light pollution. You can see all of the stars, and you can even see the Milky Way from your own front yard, I guess. But it's amazing. We're not asking or proposing for massive blackouts. This would not help people's feelings of safety, but just turning off the lights that are not in use or the motion activated ones. Or another great solution is the color of your light. Some light bulbs are redder and some are bluer, and this actually depends on the temperature of the light bulb. Colder things are redder, hotter things are bluer. It's the same when you're actually looking out at the stars. If you see a star that looks red, it actually is red, and it's a colder, probably older star than some of the bright blue ones. So we're looking for these warm white or white light bulbs, ideally the warm white ones. This kind of light, the redder, is less disruptive to our own circadian rhythms. We can sleep better. It also gets less scattered by the atmosphere, so we're going to reduce this sky glow. So yeah, just something to keep in mind when you're out searching for the next light. Oh, also when you're buying new headlights for your car, those LEDs, those are awful. They hurt your eyes. I understand they can help you see, but maybe try to go as red as you possibly can before it is dangerous, before you get uncomfortable, before you can't see. Something to keep in mind, the redder, the better. That's a good one. All right, another thing that we can do is just cut out the light that goes up. And remember this diagram, we've got a whole bunch of unnecessary light traveling up into the sky where we don't want it. And the affected area is actually so much larger than just this little street light. So what we want to happen is to cut off that upward light altogether, just have the useful light where it's needed, and then we also get the starlight, and this is a win-win situation for everybody. So here are some examples of both bad lighting and good lighting. The bad lighting is on the left, the good lighting is on the right. You'll notice with the bad lighting, what is universal is you can always see the light bulb, especially if you're looking dead on with it or head on with it, parallel with it. The good lighting, the light stays where it should. We call this fully shielded. The light bulb is hidden within this metal jacket, reflective cover, whatnot. This is another image of some more lighting. I really like this one because it highlights especially the bad lighting when it comes to the lights that go in your garden. I had to have a really hard talk with my parents when they bought some bad lighting for their garden. I said, I know you like this. I know Mom spent a lot of time debating which color of metal to get, but we need to replace it. And good lighting is not necessarily going to be more expensive than the bad lighting. It's just being mindful when you're going out and shopping for a new purchase. Or if you've got this kind of lighting on your house, keeping an eye on it and saying, okay, I recognize that that's eventually going to need to go. When I have the time, when I have the budget, when I have the energy, if I'm doing a remodel, maybe that's something to add to the list. We're not asking you to do a full entire revamp right now, just stuff to keep in mind as you're moving forward. All right, now I would love to put to shame a little bit the University of Michigan and some of its lighting. We have had many conversations with some of the leadership at University of Michigan. We are really trying to push for better lighting out there, and this is one of the examples that we talk to them about a lot. So these are the tennis courts. They are extremely well lit. They are used by students day and night. I don't even remember what time they close, but they are frequently used, and this is during one of the nighttime shifts. This image is taken up from a hill nearby, and so we're looking down on the tennis courts. And just by eye, you would think that the lights that you can see are the ones that are lighting up the tennis courts, and those would be all these little globe lights. These are unfortunately all around the campus. They are not useful. Half the light is being lost to up in the space where we don't need it at all. When actually, these are not the lights that are doing any of the lighting for the tennis courts. Instead, it is all of these lights. These massive ones that you can't even actually see because at eye level with the lights, they are properly shielded. So all of that light is going down onto the tennis courts where it's actually useful. And this is an example of well-used, very blue light too. I can imagine playing at night, it would be kind of hard, maybe with a redder light to see the green tennis ball bouncing around. The blue light's just a little better. It can be used, absolutely, but it's picking the right moment, the decision, yeah. So I did some fun Google searching and found some really great pictures of South Haven that I would also love to talk about. So this is an older photo of Phoenix Street Crescent Moon has moved to Broadway Street. I actually passed it on my way in and was like, that's on my presentation. And it was great. I know the Kilwins is still there, but actually what I want to focus on is not Crescent Moon, but rather the street lighting here. So this is a decent example of what lighting should look like on the streets. It is not fully shielded, but we're moving in the right direction. It is so much better than those globe lights at the University of Michigan, which they are trying to fix, by the way. They said they put some covers on some of them to try to make them better, and ongoing conversations are being had. Anyways, from this shielding, we have the light being used is primarily going down and a little bit is going off to the side. However, when you're considering what is around these lights, we have other businesses and storefronts. So there is more shielding kind of built in with the taller buildings. And I can imagine we'd want to illuminate some of these business fronts that don't have the lighting around them. Like I noticed Crescent Moon did not have lighting on its front during this time. And so having a little bit more of that perpendicular light is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, again, trying to figure out the situation. This shielding does also prevent from light going up into the sky where we don't want it. So, yeah, not too bad. And then if we look at the Crescent Moon now on Broadway, I want to highlight the lights out here, which are phenomenal. Even standing out on the street in front of the store, you can't see the light bulbs. But this light is going to be doing exactly what the business owners want it to do, which is going to be shining down onto the ground where the people need it, where the shoppers need it. And there's even a little recessed lighting off on the right side of the image in the little alcove. And it is fully recessed. And so it's all doing its business. A+. And finally, just some more examples of what some really nice looking lights can look like. Again, it's not more expensive. It's just being aware when you're actually out and buying your lights. And the one on the top left looks a lot like the ones that I noticed that were on Phoenix Street. But I did notice also while driving in on Broadway Street, I believe, most of the street lights were also fully recessed. So there's been a lot of work and discussion there already. And yeah, it's looking good. So, what can you do? Turn off or dim the outside lights when possible. Again, we're not asking you to go fully into blackout mode. Use the redder or warm white bulbs. You'll probably buy light bulbs before you buy a new light fixture. So just being aware when you're going to the store of which ones you're buying would be phenomenal. Aim for temperatures a little less than 3,000 Kelvin. I'm sure there's some ratings somewhere. I don't know what those are. Or use fully shielded fixtures, no upward light, again, when possible. Another thing that our group has been working towards quite a bit is changing and putting to effect light ordinances. We've been talking to Ann Arbor for a long time, as well as the University of Michigan, to get something in the local law. And thankfully, in 2021, Ann Arbor finally adopted a lighting ordinance that provides general guidelines and definitions to businesses and residential areas. And this is a huge win. It is a push in the right direction. The city asks that everybody turns their lights off between midnight and 6 a.m. Love it. However, there is a huge distinction between Ann Arbor, the city, and the University of Michigan. Those are two totally different governing bodies. They have totally different funding sources and lighting sources. And so juggling talking to both of them is interesting, but we are doing our best and hopefully talking to the right people and making progress in the right direction. I also had the pleasure of getting to look through the lighting ordinance for South Haven, and there are a lot of really great rules in there, especially I noticed a lot of details about what lighting should be had and a huge discussion on light trespass. So making sure that the light did not go past the property line, or if it did, it stays at a certain brightness or luminosity. That is something that Ann Arbor does not have, and I am going to bring this to our leader and say, hey, maybe we should use this as an example and get to do that. So there is a huge push here, which is amazing. My one suggestion is maybe I noticed there was no discussion on temperatures of light bulbs and colors of light bulbs. So that might be something to think about in the future if the discussion comes up again. But you pick and choose your battles. And at some point, you're doing a lot already. And it can take a lot of time and a lot of money to get these rules passed through and to overhaul a city. So just everybody pulling their part and doing one house at a time goes a lot further than you think it will. Imagine just one street is cooler in temperature, cooler in color, and properly shielded. That would be the street to go to stargaze, because the houses around it would block out the light from the surrounding streets and you would have a much, much better view. So one street at a time. I want to finish up by talking about lighting around Michigan in general and where you could go. So this is another light pollution map. We've got the dark areas, mainly in the Upper Peninsula, the upper part of the Mitten. You can see the brighter spots that are the purple and the silver areas, especially Detroit, Ann Arbor. But still, Michigan is one of the darkest places in the eastern half of the U.S., other than West Virginia, and West Virginia is a much further drive than nearby in Michigan. So we're not doing too bad, and it's a lot of credit goes to a lot of the groups and the people leading the groups pushing for these movements. So these are some of the dark sky preserves around us. The one I frequently go to is the Lake Hudson Recreation Area. It's about an hour drive from Ann Arbor, and I can see the Milky Way there. I bring my binoculars. I can see the rings of Saturn, the moons of Jupiter. You can even see the Andromeda Galaxy. So it's pretty cool. Near you all, you've got the Dr. T.K. Lawless International Dark Sky Park, which would be another amazing place to go stargazing if you're interested. I love to go camping a lot too, so I'll end up in the Upper Peninsula quite a bit, and a lot of those northern sky parks as well. All right, so to wrap stuff up, I am part of Michigan Dark Skies. This is not to be confused with Dark Skies Michigan, but Michigan Dark Skies. We are affiliated with the University of Michigan. This is led by Dr. Sally Uwe, who is one of our professors, and myself and Katya Gosman, who is the other graduate student president. And we're just a group of people in Michigan who really care about educating the public because, again, the steps are really easy to take. It's just being aware and mindful. And if we can get the education and communication out there, that's half the battle. So we do outreach like this, advocating for the lighting ordinances like the one we got in Ann Arbor and in Chelsea. More dark sky parks. So I heard there's one being pushed around here. Sally Uwe would be another great connection for that. And to share news and resources. This is what our website looks like. If you are interested in knowing how you can help or getting connected, I can absolutely take your email, or you can go to our website. And there is an email which is shown on the bottom right side. You don't have to find it now. Go online and look. Send us an email there, and honestly, it'll probably be me who will be adding your email to the list. And a listserv goes out about like what's happening. There's a whole document of other people involved, what they're doing, what you can do to get involved. So if you're interested, sign up. And also sign up for Dark Skies Michigan. So dark skies are really cool. I think I'm a little biased in saying that. I'm here, PhD in astronomy. Stole my dad's birding scopes. I did return them fully in one piece and clean. But hopefully one day we're able to see something like this again from Ann Arbor, and probably a lot earlier in South Haven instead of Ann Arbor. And this is something that I want to see because I want other generations to be able to see this as well. And I love astronomy because I feel like it is one of the most publicly accessible sciences we have out there. All you have to do is go outside and look up. You don't even need a fancy telescope. A tiny one will do. Even a pair of binoculars, if you have a steady stand or steady hands, you can see so many things. Nebulas, star clusters, moons of Saturn, moons of Jupiter, and probably of Saturn, and the rings of Saturn. So we want to keep this accessible for everybody, because this is how I fell in love with science, this and burying my Barbies in sand pits. But this was a lot easier and made my parents less upset. Thank you all so much for being here, and I hope this helps.
Hi, thank you so much for this presentation. I was wondering, I feel like I saw something about cities using like a purple street light or something like that that's becoming popular. Do you know anything about that?
We have
And
a couple of those in Ann Arbor, and honestly, what I heard about those was it was a defect in manufacturing. And so they weren't actually supposed to be purple, and they just accidentally turned purple. I think they're really cool, great vibe for October. But I don't think so. No, because purple is closer to blue in the lighting spectrum, in the color spectrum. So it would probably scatter quite a bit as well, unfortunately.
I read an article not long ago in Europe where they are more devoted to bike paths and getting home and things like this at night in the northern part of Europe. And a lot of them have, in their parks, have put in red lights. And I think that makes total sense when you think about the night vision guns and things that they have. So what is your take on some of that adding in certain areas?
Yeah, I am all for it. I am a big cyclist as well, and I would love some redder lights around the area, especially too, a lot of the avid cyclists have a lot of their own safety measures on their bikes, and so we'll have a bike headlamp or one on the front of their own bike. So if they need additional lighting, it is absolutely there for them to take. But having more bike paths, would love it. Having adequate lighting on the bike paths would be even better, and yeah, Europe's ahead of the game in that one.
Question that says, what can we do to light railroad yards and interstate highways and eliminate pollution?
Yeah, same. Thankfully, right here. Fully shielded lighting fixtures. So honestly, the ones that are on Broadway Street are a really great example. They look like the classic lights that go around the highways. I wonder if... One second. Yes, okay, the unshielded street light on the... Here. That is what I remember seeing growing up, taking road trips with my parents. If you just take that bulb and stick it up into that shielded part, which is what's on Broadway, that's all we're asking. That is phenomenal. You will not be able to see that light if you are head on with that lighting fixture, which is a good rule of thumb when trying to figure out if it's properly shielded or not. And you'll still have the light below you. So as long as there's funding to get lights, they just have to pick the right ones.
Out there to, you know, I sit in my lazy boy and I look at the neighbor's house at night and they have a garage light that's covering the driveway, and I'm almost tempted to go and put one on there for them, for their benefit. But I'm wondering if those are available like aftermarket or...
I think so. So part of the discussion that we've been having with the University of Michigan has been not to fully replace those bulb lights that they have, but rather to find that option for them as well. Something to keep in mind is those lights that are fully illuminated, they might burn whatever you put on top of it or melt plastic. So it depends on the light bulb that they have inside there. And just being conscientious of what cover that you are purchasing, but you can probably just jerry rig one too. Get some metal and bend it together, a little cap, and stick it over. Honestly, I also thought about buying a new lighting fixture or just light bulb and walking over to my neighbors and be like, hi, this sucks. Use this, please. Yeah, all good.
I think I read that Pittsburgh made an adaptation where they are shutting off their city lights for certain hours, and they're saving almost $1 million a year in doing so. Is that something that you see maybe catching on with other municipalities?
God, I hope so. I think once they figure out that, well, we have all of this data and all this proof that lighting doesn't necessarily equal safe. And then we're looking for budget cuts here and there. And just turning off the lights for a couple of hours makes a huge difference. So my hope is that they are willing to share that data and that it becomes publicly accessible and other people believe it. Because I think there's still a huge issue is safety.
Hi, I would love to go to a dark sky area. How do you drive in? I don't want to mess anybody's eyes up.
That's a great question because I get peeved. Yeah. Okay, so once you... It's kind of hard because sometimes you don't necessarily know that you were getting to the parking area. But I think, for me at least, the rule of thumb is once you get into that parking area, if you can see other people out, turn off your lights. You can sit there for a second in your car, let your eyes adjust. You are not going far without the lights on in your car. Just drive, and park somewhere. They're usually not super crowded unless there's a huge event happening that night. If you do have your lights on, please, for the love of God, don't park facing everybody. You just get absolutely blasted with the light, and then some people will be leaving and turn their lights on and just leave them on. And you'll see people, like, I can't make the gesture, but up at the cars trying to, like, get them to turn their lights off. So if you are familiar with the area, know when to turn your lights off before going into the parking lot. Or if the parking lot is not immediately connected to the viewing area, you can leave them on. That's okay. But if you're going to affect somebody else's light vision, turn your lights off, please.
I wondered if you or one of your people in your organization is looking at doing work advocating for more not only enforcement but the writing of lighting ordinances.
Potentially. As far as I know, the work we've been primarily doing is just getting a light ordinance to begin with. And then our light ordinance in Ann Arbor it's there. It is a step in the right direction, but it is fairly light. And I do not always see it being enacted either. I don't know where I would start, honestly. I would probably go to Sally Uwe, the director of Michigan Dark Skies, and then try to find a contact within the city to ask them if they have any steps for that. But I can also imagine that being the hardest task. I think a lot of it comes from public education and people wanting to try because we can't enforce it in the residential areas. And so them just, hopefully being good people. But unfortunately, I don't know if that's a step that we have right now. Talking to neighbors, if they are reasonable humans and listen to science and the list of studies that we have already. Or buying a light fixture and handing it to them, maybe. Yeah.
Does voltage make a difference?
Yes. Well, hopefully your house is not going to be running something crazy high. I think they're pretty leveled off at a specific voltage for the lighting fixture, so it really shouldn't matter that much. And what really matters is what you're putting into that socket that is running a consistent voltage.
Please tell us what your future plans are.
Oh, yeah. But in a couple months, I'll be starting residency in medical physics at the University of Michigan, and then hopefully I'll go off and be a therapeutic medical physicist. And sorry, for those who don't know, a medical physicist is the person who's in charge of the linear accelerators that's delivering radiation treatment to cancer patients. So I'll be one of the people making sure that if anyone's getting radiation treatment, you're getting the right dose and the machine is running correctly. We check it before every single patient. We always check the plans. So yeah, it's kind of a fun behind-the-scenes job. It's x-rays in space, now x-rays in a human. Same thing. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so very, very much.